let's go to Blake. Blake, who's your most underrated running back in the NFL?
All right, so this is a guy, NFC East. He played against the Niners this year in an infamous Sunday night game early on in the year for the Eagles, and that's Miles Sanders. Averages 4.9 yards a carry. For some reason, Doug Peterson just hates giving this guy like more than 15 carries. I don't know. It's once Miles Sanders gets 15 touches, he's like, all right, we cannot let him touch the ball anymore. But super effective, really good receiver. I don't know why he doesn't get the ball more because they don't really have good receivers whatsoever. They don't really have any weapons besides him. And he ran behind a devastated O-line last year, losing Brooks and then Dillard, I believe. We were both out. The only guy was Lane Johnson, and they get those guys back next year. So I think they'll be able to run the ball a lot more, especially with Hurts kind of taking some pressure off him in a read option game. So I like him a lot, and I think he's going to be someone who goes a little under the radar before the season starts.
By far the best athlete on that offense, no?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really.
Well, Arcega-Whiteside maybe, but.
I mean, he wasn't that much. I mean, he's like in the same class of athlete as Saquon Barkley almost, right? No.
Kind of.
I think
maybe Shady McCoy
above, but
yeah.
He's like if you downgraded everything a little bit, like a little bit.
But they went to the same school, no?
Yes, they did.
They went to. He went to Penn State. What about Shady McCoy? Do you think he's that agile?
I can see that.
I don't know if he's as shifty as Shady McCoy. Shady McCoy could cut on a dime.
Maybe in terms of speed, size, that comp. Yeah. Obviously, Shady McCoy's agility was different. But Grant, any thoughts on Miles Sanders? You got to see him live week 4 this year.
I think he's really good. I think he's been kind of held back by the fact that there's nothing on that. That team sucks. We were going through like the best rosters in the league earlier, the Niners and the Bucks. Go through the Eagles. That team is terrible. So, I mean, there's not much that he can show.
Yeah. Agreed. And I actually think they have a creative run game. Like, I think Doug Peterson had a lot of variety in his run game, especially when you include that he has a lot of variety with how they run RPOs and stuff. It's just, it didn't suit, Carson Wentz, who his quarterback was. And for whatever reason, as Blake said, he didn't use Miles Sanders enough. Like, Miles Sanders' receiving ability was just an untapped potential that existed on the Philadelphia Eagles last year, but wasn't used. I mean, this was a guy who, as a rookie, was arguably their best receiver. Could we say that?
Mm-hmm.
Are there any Alshon Jeffrey fans, Aguilar fans in here?
They were sweet in 2017, but they fell off the cliff.
And when your best receiver is your running back, you suck. It's not his fault, but you gotta have more than that, and that's where the Eagles are.
Right,
he's a hell of a player. They need more.
Right, and so in 2017, like his receiving ability, they didn't use, and I think I love the pick of Miles Sanders. He's an explosive athlete. He can house call a lot, and you talked about it. He is good in the shotgun run game. Like not everybody's suited for that. Like
legitimately great.
Right, Frank Gore's shotgun run game was never his forte, but Carlos Hyde, on the other hand, he was much better in the shotgun run game than he was under center. And so Miles Sanders is suited for the shotgun run game, and he'll be fantastic in the read option with Jalen Hurts next year. I truly believe that.
Vish, do yours. I got to leave in 3 minutes. I want to hear it.
3 minutes?
I got to leave. I got to go. Yeah.
Mine, I can't believe I'm doing this because I've already said this team is going to win the AFC next year. I picked their quarterback for the most underrated player in the NFL, but I'm going to go once again to the Cleveland Browns, who seemingly are my adopted second favorite team. And I'm going to go to Kareem Hunt, and I'm going to say he's the most underrated running back in the NFL. And so where I think Kareem Hunt gets underrated, right? Obviously, he had that horrible off-the-field incident. We don't need to get into that. But prior to that, he was looked at as one of the 5 or 6 best running backs in the NFL. After that, last year, to me, he was the same exact guy. I don't think there's a peep about Kareem Hunt as one of the 10 best running backs in the NFL.
It's like just overshadowing him, yeah.
Right, but to me, the difference between Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt as runners, Nick Chubb is obviously the better runner. I don't think it's that drastic. Kareem Hunt had 841 rushing yards last year and 6 touchdowns for about 4.2 yards a carry. Now, he's not as good a runner as Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is more explosive. Nick Chubb is better after contact. Nick Chubb has better contact balance and better patience and better vision. But Kareem Hunt is also very good in all of those areas, just not as good as Nick Chubb. Where I think he separates himself, and I think he's actually better than his peer Nick Chubb in this particular area, is that he's a hell of a receiving back. He's turned into their third down running back that they line up everywhere. He's an unbelievable wide receiver. I mean, last year he had 5 receiving touchdowns, 38 catches. I mean, for a team that's loaded with receiving options, 3 good tight ends, 3 or 4 good receivers. The fact that you have 38 catches and 5 touchdowns from a running back to me is impressive. If you go down the list, to me, there's no reason why Kareem Hunt, you can say he's not one of the 10 best running backs in the NFL. Like, Grant, you mentioned that you think Ronald Jones is. To me, Kareem Hunt is definitely one of the 10 best running backs in the NFL. Obviously, his off-field incident was horrific, but at the same time, I don't understand why the dialogue or the conversation around this guy is now like, oh, he's just a backup running back.
Kareem Hunt or Ronald Jones?
I think Kareem Hunt's better.
I think it's close. I think it's close.
It is very close.
To me, the receiving, because Ronald Jones isn't the greatest of receivers, but Kareem Hunt's a very good one.
I can see that. Guys, I gotta go. Sorry to do that, but this was a lot of fun. Let's do it again. This was a lot of fun. I'm going to something called the Colombo Club. It's an Italian men's club. My mom's Italian, so my brother signed up. He was my half brother on my mom's side, and it's an Italian men's club, and you go and like eat pasta and stuff. It's mostly people in their 70s and 80s, but we go and have a good time. So peace.
Have a great time, Grant. We'll definitely get you on soon. I'll see you Monday, but we definitely got to get you on sometime next week.
Of course,
always
a pleasure.
Packers.
Definitely. All right, guys, take care.
Right, see you. Thank you.
Right, oh.
Yeah, he didn't leave. On Kareem Hunt, though, if we go back to that for a minute, I was going to say, if you remember, I want to say it was 2017 or 18. He was still on the Chiefs. He was viewed as a top 5 running back. And I don't think he's really, like, maybe he's gotten a little worse, but it's tough to say. It's actually tough to say. And it's not like the system he's in is much worse. He's behind the best O-line. If he was given more opportunities, like if Nick Chubb just didn't play on this team, I would be very interested to see what he could do for the Browns.
Me too, because you're right? He was one of the top 5 running backs.
He was regarded
when he was on the Chiefs, right? It was everything, right? Because he was a beast for fantasy too. He was a beast for fantasy, but that's besides the point. Like Kareem Hunt, everybody said, like, yeah, this is one of the best running backs in the NFL. I don't know why the conversation changed, but to me, he remains right there. Like, to me, nothing has changed in terms of his talent and ability. Now, what he did was horrific, but we're just talking about him as a football player.
Talking about him as an NFL player. Yeah. And I think what's weird too is he actually did get that opportunity for, I want to say 4 or 5 weeks this year, where he was the lead back. Chubb was injured in the middle of the season. And I think a lot of those games are in like the monsoons, I guess you would call them, where the weather was just like horrendous. But I'm with you. I would love to see him just no Chubb. Maybe they have some complimentary backup that comes in occasionally, and he's getting like 70% of the carries. He could dominate. He would dominate. I am fully on board with that. The thing with me is I don't know if he'd still be a top 5 because I look at the top 5, 6. I think they're pretty set. I think Aaron Jones is right there, 7, 8. When you throw in names like Joe Mixon too, it's hard to put him there, but I think it goes to show how many more running backs have really popped off in the last maybe 2 years. Because the running back scene changes a lot. I mean, 3 years ago it was Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, and Todd Gurley. Those guys are, for the most part, afterthoughts now, which is hard to believe. Right. That's how fast the running back cycle is.
Right. They're not even in the top 25.
They're not even on teams. They're not even rostered besides David Johnson, who's behind like – They just have a bunch of random running backs that the Texans put. They saw rankings 3 years ago and they signed all the guys they could.
Right. I mean, look at Zeke, right? 2 years ago, if you had a top 5 running back list and it did not include Zeke Elliott, you were crazy. Now, if you include Zeke Elliott in a top 5 running back list, you're crazy. But just to elaborate on that, to me, I agree with you. Even if he was still the Chiefs guy, to me, the 6 guys at the top of the NFL are kind of set in stone, and they're just better than when he was on the Chiefs. When you go Nick Chubb, when you go Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook, obviously Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, and Alvin Kamara, to me, those 6, and then I'd probably put Aaron Jones 7. But 8 to 10, when you talk about Mixon and you're talking about Josh Jacobs and Chris Carson and Ronald Jones, he's right there with all of them to me.
Agreed.